Welcome to the Conquer Your Mountains Week 25 podcast titled, Who is that hiding behind your mask?
If you are following the Conquer Your Mountains reading plan, you are in week 25, that is the name, Jeremiah, Mold Me and Make Me.
My name is Amanda Witt, and I am the senior editor at Luca, the faith and inspiration imprint of Penguin Random House, South Africa.
And I am Mandla Moyo, the author of an inspirational book called Conquer Your Mountains, as well as a science fiction book called The Fallen Angel.
Mandla, the title of our episode today is, Who is that behind your mask? Is this based on your book?
Yes, Amanda. If you go to week 25 of the book, it has this extract that I wrote. We wear multiple faces, depending on whether we're at work, home, or church. Parting with friends, courting a potential mate, stuck in traffic, in trouble with the law, deciding what tax to declare, or maybe when someone has jumped ahead of us in the queue. Which type of circumstance reveals the real you, your real face?
Masks a natural requirement of the world we live in, where we wear multiple hats. Why would you say it's important to find out who is hiding behind the mask?
From my perspective, it's important to be authentic. I think sometimes you put on a mask because of the role that you play. So, for example, if you are a judge in a court, the moment you put on that robe, you have to wear the persona that comes with it. We do need to be authentic. We need to accept who we are, irrespective of the things where we believe we are strong or weak. We need to accept all the bumps and pimples that come with who we are in this world. And I think when we accept ourselves better, it helps us to be less anxious. It helps us stop from living a life where we're always trying to perform as if we're on a stage. It helps us to nurture sound relationships with the people that we love. And it also helps us to just accept that none of us are perfect. We're always on a road of rediscovery, a road of remolding ourselves. Hence the theme of week 25, which is mold me and make me. You can't be molded if you're not quite sure who you really are.
So what are the different types of masks we wear?
In life, I find that we have so many roles that we switch amongst. We have a role that we're in work environment, and a lot depends on what we do in that work environment. For example, you are in finance, and I'm also in finance. The role that you play is you're typically challenging the costs that other people are incurring. So you wear a particular mask, which is around your attitude to finance and the way you deal with other people when it comes to making financial decisions. And yet, the next day you could be out going for a walk with friends, and then you suddenly have to wear another role and another mask. And I think that comes with wearing many hats in our lives.
When would you say does your mask typically slip?
Often if I'm stressed, if there's something unexpected that has happened, your mask can slip. And when I say slip, that's if you are not living the authentic version of yourself, then you always need to be mindful of this mask that can slip. And it might be that you present yourself to the world as someone that is cool, calm, and collected, but meanwhile you have this raging fire inside of you, and suddenly something happens and you snap. And
Yes.
the challenge with that is if you haven't addressed the real you, instead of changing yourself or molding yourself into a better version of you, you've spent more years just trying to work on how you appear to other people as opposed to who you really are and who you want to be becoming.
Yes, that makes sense. It's like when you're under pressure. So when you squeeze an orange, there's not going to be apple juice that drips out. It's going to be an orange juice. So it's what you're truly made of that's going to come out when that mask slips. So if people expect certain things from you according to your mask, and then you suddenly show something else, I think that can be a bit unnerving. How do we find the balance between being authentic versus adapting artificially to our surroundings?
I've always wondered how you do that. For example, if a policewoman or policeman stops you at the traffic lights, and they are upset that you were speeding or doing something, they wear a persona that goes with their job. So they're not going to smile at you and tap you warmly and say, hey, by the way, you were speeding. I think they're picking a thin voice. And that comes with that role that they play. It's part of their persona. But I think irrespective of the role that you play, there's a true you that has to shine through. So if you are in charge of maintaining the law, but at your core, you're a very friendly person, I think you can be both. You can be a friendly person, but also have to be strict if a situation comes across where you have to turn the strict persona or the strict mask. It is possible to find that balance. And for me, it's about just constantly questioning myself to say, is this the real me? Will the real me stand up and show up?
Do you think we use masks as a defense mechanism if something like that happens to us?
Masks are a defense mechanism because effectively you can use a mask to put up a wall around you. So, for example, if you are afraid that if you become too friendly with someone, they might abuse what they think is a friendly version of you, and they might reach into your personal space and make you uncomfortable. So in some cases, you would put up a mask as a defense mechanism to say, this is how far you can come. And sometimes it's a valid defense mechanism, but sometimes there's a risk that you end up not being the real you. And the danger of that is if you live your life like that, by the time you get to retirement age, you'll look at yourself and you'll be like, who is the real me in all of this? And I often find that at the time that people retire, it becomes stressful because they've worn a mask at work. So let's say you a chief executive office and your persona might be, not that I do it, but maybe ordering people around, asserting your authority. Once that role comes to an end and you've got no one to assert your authority with, you could find that you don't quite know who you are anymore. And people then become depressed because the persona that they were wearing all along has disappeared.
So masks can be something that we hide behind, but it can also be parts of our personality that we wear in situations where they are necessary. So if you're a mother and your child gets hurt, you put on your nurse masks, for example, and you nurture them and, tend to what they need to be, help them to get better and feel better. So it can be a useful thing.
It's really about separating your role from the mask. As a parent, you have a particular role, and if your child has been hurt, you are in that role. You haven't changed who you are, but you probably wouldn't act the same if it was another situation. Maybe something happens to a colleague, you'd act differently. And interestingly, you find that you'll even change your tone of voice. Fascinating how we've got different voices for when we interact with children, to when we interact with animals, to when we interact with colleagues or in the church environment. It's always been fascinating how people have those different ways of expressing themselves. And it's the same person, but they'll speak differently in each circumstance. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's natural.
Yes,
As long as you're being authentic.
Yes, it's your authentic person who you are at work and it's your authentic person who you are at home, but they are still different people. Well, different parts of your personality, I would say.
Yes.
That's very interesting. So what practices or reflections can help us peel back the layers and discover our authentic self?
The key practice is to really work on ourselves internally. It's an internal work, and that internal work starts by understanding what is your true purpose in life and how do you want to express that purpose in terms of what you are doing or what you want to do. So just understanding your purpose is one of the first steps to understanding what persona you want to bubble out of you. Because I think of your orange that has apple juice coming out, hopefully that orange starts by understanding that it's actually an orange.
Yes.
And is not trying to force apple juice to come out. So understanding who you are, which is linked to your purpose, and just looking at the assumptions that you've made about your life in respect to the various roles that you play. Are there any assumptions that you need to consider? You need to get feedback from people, because sometimes you might think that your persona is working or is effective, but maybe speak to some close friends and say, like in a work environment, you can do a 360-degree assessment. And often when you go for coaching, those 360-degree assessments are so useful, because you'll say to others, how do you really see me? And when I act like this, what impact does it have on you? So I think often we don't take the time to test who we are versus the way other people see us. And often it can be shocking, because when you look at the mirror, you see a particular version of yourself, but that's not necessarily the version that people see of you. So it's important to introspect, see what the layers are, see what's at your core, and then if you realize that you need to change, then the key step is to be vulnerable in your process of change and just see what you need to condition differently.
I think there could be like an opposite aspect to that as well, where in order to remain authentic to who you are, you have to be not open to outside influences if they are negative and not impacting you for the greater good.
Yes, that's true. Not everything is true that people say about you. People have different motivations, different agendas. Or maybe they are sincere, but they've only seen a small part of you. So if you are an elephant and the other person hasn't seen your whole body, all they've seen is your trunk, they might form a view of you that's based on the way your trunk behaves. They can't see the greater part of you, your
It's
short
part of a
tail.
bigger whole.
Yes, yeah. That's why you can't base your input just on one or two interactions. I think you need to take broader input, but that input should be aligned to your purpose. So it's no use going to a village where no one is aligned to what you are, what your mission is, because the feedback will be based purely on their worldview. It won't help
Yes,
at all.
their own motivations and perceptions and perspectives.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mandla. That was really exciting to learn about masks, unmasking ourselves, and how we can find our true selves amidst all of this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amanda. It's been a pleasure as always talking to you, and I'll see you on the next episode.